So you are the first repeat victim, I mean guest,
I'm the first?
on the yeah. I've had podcasts where I've had them and I've split them up,
Okay.
but I have not had anybody come back to
Oh,
sort of re.
wow.
I think the first podcast I released with you was January 18th of 24.
I know, which isn't that long ago, I guess, but it
It's
feels
not
like
that long ago, but
a lot
remind
has
me.
happened.
Yeah, well, remind me where you were, because we've recorded probably a couple, a week or so earlier than that. So where were you in January of 24, or even like December of 23?
Yeah, I was entering my last busy season, is where I was of public accounting, of 20 years in public accounting. And I was in it. I was in it. And we had just, so in January of 24, we moved back to my home state of Colorado after I'd spent 25 years on the East and West coasts. And so there was a lot of transition happening, and I was preparing for this career shift outside of public accounting into a creative period, right, of launching my book into the world, of finishing my master's degree, of taking some time off during the summers to be with my daughter before she started kindergarten. Um, and then shifting into teaching and, focused at that time on leadership teaching and coaching. And so it was like the beginning of this precipice of a big shift.
And was that beginning already flushed out and executed, or were you sort of feeling out the process? Because you mentioned a lot of things, a book, teaching,
Yeah.
all this other stuff. I mean, was it a whirlwind, or did you have sort of, I hate to ask a CPA this question, but was there a structured plan? Did you have it in Excel and everything else?
Oh gosh, I did not have it in Excel. I did not have it in Excel, but there was a plan. I mean, I had a pretty lengthy notice period for my role. So I had given notice in October, and so it was sort of a 6, 7 month notice period. So everyone knew I was leaving. Um, and the move, was in process. The book was also in process. So I had a publication date of April 2025. And so I was in the middle of, the final editing process. And I had already, secured work teaching at the University of Denver. Now, I wasn't teaching that semester because I was in busy season, right? But I knew that once, April hit, I would be teaching. And so I had a plan of sort of a general outline of this is what this next year is going to look like and focus on. But nothing quite prepares you for the reality of actually crossing a new threshold,
I
I
was
guess
going to
I
say,
would say.
how did the plan pair up with reality?
I mean, I think tactically, like I accomplished in the last, year and a half, the things that were important to me, right? Getting the book out, completing my master's, teaching, taking some time off. Emotionally, it's been a whirlwind. I left sort of the security, the stability of this corporate role. I stepped into kind of an entrepreneurial lens and owned my time in a different way, right? And also had to own kind of like where do I focus my energy, because this wasn't intended, like I retired with quotes with my public accounting career, but I didn't retire from working. And so how do you create this life that you desire? It's really full of possibilities and fun, and also scary and intimidating and vulnerable and like freaking out and all of the things, right? Like it takes a lot of emotional strength, I think, to navigate some of these big shifts. And I did a lot of energy work, a lot of work on myself to just tune into what was important to me in this next chapter.
What do you mean by energy work?
So I did some coaching with people. So I did like horse coaching, right? So I joined a program where horses were a part of our program because they are very powerful in moving energy, right? So uh, just being in the field and their presence, right, can just give you different insights. I did a lot of emphasis on nervous system regulation. So making sure I'm getting a walk in every day. I'm having spaciousness in my day. I was used to like back to back to back to back to back meetings, every single day. And you get addicted to that. And my nervous system had to kind of go through a detox the last year and a half to learn what it feels like to not operate with constant urgency.
Yeah.
And that's not always easy, right? And how do you know what's important or urgent? And that doesn't always have to be tied to what someone else is telling you is important or urgent. And so there's been a lot of how do I slow down so that I can see the bigger picture and tune into like what do I need and how do I need to work in a way that's better fueled for my body.
Mm, that's amazing.
Yeah, so lots of fun.
Well, um, I'm so happy that you came back to talk again because I almost feel like this is like a mini longitudinal study.
Am I your like academic case study, Thomas?
But, well,
I love it.
the reason why I say that is because what I'm curious about is with all these, I mean, you've had an amazing year.
I
There's
have.
no doubt. And how has that aligned with your value structure, or did your like, is it chicken egg? Did your value structure, was it something that helped you along this journey, or was there something else? Because I got
You
this,
got my
and
book.
you can see there's a couple flags I have
There's a
here.
few flags. Oh
There's a
dear.
couple flags. So there's a couple flags. So, and there's a couple points in here. I'm like, oh my God. So
Yeah, I can't wait to
I
hear.
purposely didn't listen to our first. I didn't re-listen to it again. I didn't want to
Yeah.
do that, but I did pick up a couple things from here, and that's what sort of drove my curiosity. So I hope you apologize for my questions, but
Yeah, I mean, I think my value structure informed my decision to make the shifts because I had known that I had wanted to make shifts 3 years before I did, and it was a battle of courage, and logistics, right? Because there's logistics when you still have I still have to pay my bills. It's not like I walked away from that, and so I had to prepare financially to be able to shift directions for a period of time. Um, but I knew I had this momentum and all of these creative outlets that I was trying to manage on the side in the margins of my life, and that wasn't allowing me to rest enough, to be present enough with my family, to show up in the way I wanted to be all in on these creative passions for at least a season of my life. And I knew I also needed to be all in on my job because it was important and highly regulated, right? And it came to a point where those were in conflict, and I decided to shift.
well, that's what when I was reading this, some of the things that kept on in back of my head. I'm like, how many hours is she billing? Like, what is the work stress? Because I mean, if you're in the accounting profession, you realize the stress that environment can bring. And as I'm going through this, I'm like, because you don't really talk about that side too much.
Yeah,
But I
yeah.
was like, what is going on? Because you packed so much in. I'm like, how is she doing all this stuff? Like, even there's one point. Let me see if I can find it here. Maybe I can't find it right away. Maybe I didn't flag that one. But there's one point I'm like, where were you in your journey? Did you make partner at this point? Oh, I gotta find this. This is gonna kill me now.
Yeah, I
But
didn't make partner in the book. The partner comes after. Yeah, so
oh,
I'm not
okay.
a partner yet in the book.
Because you talked
Yeah.
about being senior manager, and there was a
Yeah.
senior manager celebration in Florida.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that the book covers sort of my staff through senior manager years, through to the
NDC.
SEC and DC. Yeah. And then when I finished the SEC, I went back to EY as a partner. And so that I started a second book that sort of started there, and then I've abandoned it because I don't have capacity and I'm living the second chapter. I don't know how it ends. So I don't have a through line yet in my theme or story. And so I had this like ambition, like I'm gonna get that one out next year. And I have two books, but no, no, you'll all have to wait.
Well, I like how you end it. Like, I like the epilogue,
That's my
right?
favorite. It's one of the first things I wrote.
It's it's giving me the
Yeah.
I'm a romantic at heart, so when I read this
Yeah.
stuff, it's just like it instantly I'm like
It's so good.
But yeah, but I love how you end it. What is the most, or what's the question you get the most about your book? Because I've seen you on LinkedIn, I've seen you on you're making the rounds.
I am.
So
Well, I did my first two book clubs last week, and so those were like smaller Q&A conversations, and whew, they did not hold back. I was in DC, and they just peppered me with questions. So some of it is just even people are curious about the writing process and the publication process. How did you make time to do that while you're navigating a corporate career, you're raising a daughter, you're in the middle of a pandemic, like how do you do
yeah.
that practically? People are really curious about the earlier part of my story of being in a challenging relationship. And so there's a lot of questions that tend to come on, how did you not see sort of some of the red flags, or how did you navigate that? So there's a
Oh,
lot of
that's
questions
such an
there.
unfair question because when you're in it,
Yeah, and that those are hard. I mean, honestly, like I had a little bit of a vulnerability hangover last week because it was a lot on the first part of the book and just my, first marriage, and which I wrote about, right? I have to be open to talk about that. But those are and that was my journey, right? I had to learn the hard way how to listen to my gut, unfortunately. And I think I came out stronger, and there's so much beauty as you see as you get through the sort of the second part of the book, and it is
yeah.
about me finding my voice. Um, but it's what I've enjoyed is I kind of get therapy as other people read my story because they will ask questions or they'll reflect things back, and it helps me understand myself in ways maybe I didn't before. So that's been interesting just to stay curious about my own experience and not, people have been very warm and supportive, but just realize, why did I make some of these choices? I think that's been interesting.
Yeah, that's such a tough question though.
Yeah.
And there's so much beauty outside of that earlier chapter
Yeah.
that, it's nice to go there and reflect on that and see that. But I think there's so much more richness in the last quarter of the book in terms of
So
what
you
happens.
did make it because I know you like had to stop because it was hard. So you kept going.
Oh
Okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. I was like, is it? And I will just say that too for people who read it. If it feels hard at first, like just know that it gets better. But I needed to show that contrast of living in black and white versus color because that really was what that felt like.
Well, and not only that, but I think it also shows a maturity in how you uh, viewed relationships,
Yeah.
which is really incredible given the first half of the book, right? So I
Yeah.
think that was what was really interesting. And like, there is some great details in here, but then there's some that are suggested. So,
I mean, there's some nuance. What are you
so,
laughing at?
so like on page 129, like there's one paragraph you write about it, and I say, and you can't read my reading, but
Yeah.
I said, so did you?
Did I? Oh, is this
Yeah.
France?
Um, is it? I think it is. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So what
Yep.
does the sentence say?
Being together in person made me abandon my preconceived ideas and feelings about how I should be. I felt safe in his arms and was willing to trust him with my heart.
Hmm.
Then the next sentence says, the next morning.
Yeah, I figured that was the scene that you had highlighted there. Yeah, I mean, yeah, well, what do you think? I mean, my editor thought that was brilliant, to be honest with you. She
Yes,
was
you
like,
could
"Yeah,
tell
you
by my
woke up.
blushing.
Yeah, yeah, you woke up, and it was lovely." So and honestly, like those were harder scenes for me to write. Like the first one, especially my wedding night, I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is people are going to know things about me that are so personal," and it's very personal, right, as a memoir. And then when I read the audiobook, I had to read that scene like 4 or 5 times to get it right. And so but I think part of that, I had a lot of shame on my experience when I first moved to New York. Like nobody knew I had divorced. I didn't know how to talk about it. And I think part of this that I'm embracing now, the fact that I can laugh at myself, I can talk about, life and realize like we all have these life experiences, and my core value is authenticity. And this is a way of hopefully being very authentic in my real life experience and encouraging others to feel comfortable to do that as well. That to me is a real gift. But there's some fun adventures in there, right?
There's some great adventures in there. I mean,
Yeah.
your passport must look amazing with all the
Oh,
stamps.
I almost got it to be complete. But I had a couple pages left before I had to renew it. My new one is not as worn, but it's
Yet.
so fun. Yet. Yeah.
Well, the,
Yes.
the interesting statistic, and again, going back to numbers, is that I think at one point, I can't remember exactly where, but this tells you that I actually read the book, was
I believe
that at
you.
one point you had said that there was I think there was 20 trips that you had made, and 17 of them were post your marriage, or when you sort of made that decision.
Yeah.
So that really shows.
I visited 30 countries in 3 years. 3 years maybe. Yeah, like it was insane. I would go on 4 trips a year and I would hit a couple countries at a time. And I was just, I had not lived really for 10 years
Well,
and I was making up for time.
what were you looking for when those visits?
I think I just wanted to see the world. Like I had this just passion since I was a teenager to see the world because I grew up, we didn't really travel or go on vacation when I was younger. And so I didn't have a lot of exposure and I was so hungry for that. And I wanted to go to all these places I'd always heard about.
So there, I do have a couple flags
All
that
right, you have some flags. What do you got for me?
well, I got a lot
I
of
can
flags, but
handle it.
there was like I put the flags that I had really sort of like
Okay.
they're not like they're a little more, I think, I don't want to say deeper questions, but I'm super
Yeah.
curious. And there's other ones that are like all over the place. But hold on, let me just check one thing. Oh, where it is. Yeah, okay, but I have to. This is I'm showing my.
Oh no, I need my
Yeah, I
glass. I
got
need
it.
my glasses too. Mine are upstairs, so I'm not reading anything.
So this is in the chapter Star or Rock Star Wannabe.
Yep.
So it's a little bit earlier in the journey. I'm on page 110, the paperback copy here.
Okay.
And this is when I read this, is like, okay, this I have to sort of understand what this is. A year ago today, I left my marriage in California to move to this city. My values have changed a little since moving here, and I think I finally realized what's most important in my life.
So this was sort of
By the way, beautiful sentence, and
they
you know what's coming next.
and you can actually see that live if you Google. I'll send you the link after. You can see that whole performance live because I do have it on my YouTube. But so I was being a little sarcastic there because I was singing Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend. And so that was my intro to basically be, now it's all about the diamonds. Like show me the money. And so I think that was also though for me that experience was bringing my humor into my essence. And I have a very humorous, playful side. And so that was sort of this like, look at now I'm in New York City, right? So show me the diamonds. And so that was sort of a playful edge. Um,
But was it a shifting? Were your values shifting a little bit, or were they growing, or were you reconnecting with them or rediscovering them? So that's what I'm.
I, I think the deeper question under that is I was valuing myself. And I wasn't doing that as much in those earlier 10 years. I think for now I was saying, actually, I matter too. And I deserve to have the experiences that are important to me. So that's the shift that I think this book represents from a value perspective is realizing that I have worth in this conversation too. And even though there's needs and maybe I can help support other people in their needs, I have a value of my own life and deserve to be able to live that authentically.
Does that still continue to be a struggle, or did you constantly have to monitor that, or are you?
Oh, I still struggle with that. I mean, I'm a very caring person. Like care is a deep value of mine. Um, you know, being, what is the word? Generosity is a deep value of mine. So that shows up in different ways. I'm a recovering people pleaser, right? So I have an amiable social style, so like all these things make that hard to do. And I'm a mom of a 6-year old. And so there's been some parallels, honestly, because I'm in a caregiver role, obviously intentionally, right? I love being a mom, but it's hard at times. And there are moments where I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel that confinement that I felt earlier in my life. And how do I still make sure I'm taking care of myself in that process? So I still work on that every day.
Wow, yeah, because I think there's, when you talk about care and authenticity, I almost, and you can slap me around, tell me I'm stupid here, but I think the care that as a mom and what it means and what it does is a lot different, contextually, spiritually, like everything about that aspect of care is probably radically different than the care that you were providing in California back in the day when you're told that I need you here now. You got to be here now.
Yeah,
So
there's a different emotional tie. But I've also had moments as a mom where I've not been okay mentally, and I've reached that breaking point, and it scared me. Where I'm like, "Ooh, this is a sign like you need some more support." And so I'm much more aware than I was, in my 20s of taking care of myself. So it doesn't mean I don't reach that point. It just means, I don't really as much because I'm trying to be proactive and knowing where I need to take care of myself.
can you feel the growth in you? I know sometimes like when you're in it day to day, every day, you don't see it, right? Like others may see it, but do you feel the growth? I mean, because when I if I go back to page, you know, 17 versus our discussion now, I mean,
I do feel the growth. Yeah, I do. I feel so much more grounded in who I am. Like I know who I am and I don't apologize for it. Hold on, I got a cough because I'm like, now I got a coughing fit. It's like, what is happening? You can cut that out.
no way, man, I'm keeping that in.
Like I'm gonna have a coughing fit. Um, no, I do. And it's interesting. So one of the book clubs, they were like, so who are you? Because I see you coming to my book club as this confident person who's navigated a lot of challenges. And then were you always that person? Has that shifted? So that was really interesting.
My guess is, and I think you were probably always that person. It's just that you didn't have the right vehicle for it to come out, and it was always there, and it was always that diamond's always going to want to come out, right? So I think that's I don't know. I don't really know much of
I
anything, but that's what I feel.
Yeah, and I did do because I started a blog when I moved to New York.
On
I
top of the
remember
50 other things that you were doing.
yes, because I was doing all the things. Um, but I remember at some point there was this like, I'm 19 again, because I think my 19-year-old version, I had shifted out of ballet. I was dancing Chicago, Broadway style musical. I had a sexy solo. I was embracing, my energy and playfulness. And then a year later, I got married, and then my light dimmed, right? And so there was a part of this like coming back to my 19-year-old authentic self who was that confident, fun,
Yeah,
playful, sassy side. But I had this period where it was just like I was hidden, or dimmed. And I think you're right. Like the context of my situation didn't support that. And so I've become a lot more, and I would say this has shifted even in the last year and a half since I've left kind of, my corporate identity. I'm a lot more attuned into which people, which systems, which places I feel valued. I feel like I can be my authentic self. And I'm not willing to compromise that, honestly. Like there's been some really good opportunities that I've explored that I've been like, maybe not a good fit because if I have to fit into a box or you want me to hide, like some people have been like, you're gonna have to hide these things about you or these
yeah.
passion projects, that's not gonna work for me.
Yeah, I think those days for most of us are over, right? There's too much that we can express. Like it's I remember when I first started work, they used to say, you're very emotional about certain things and you've got a lot of you wear your heart on your sleeve. And they said it
Yeah.
to me as it was almost a negative. And I was like, you know what? I don't think so. And it just turns out that that is much more of a strength now and a positive than it may have been 25, 30 years ago, right? I just think it's a different, we're just experiencing a different time.
Yeah, and for me that shows up as like you're so expressive. You're so passionate, right? And you know what? Now I've just made that part of my brand, so to speak, or so my color wardrobe for all my author events is hot pink and hot, bold colors and because that's who I am. So am I going to I'll put the blazer on for the corporate conference, but underneath it will be my bold print color because that's who I am. And so part of my values and I don't remember if I had articulated this in our first conversation because I haven't listened to it in a while either.
Yeah, good.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, but one of them is how I display my authenticity in like a real world statement is be a pop of color in a world of gray or a sea of gray.
Mm,
So for me, because I was in a corporate realm where everybody's in gray and black, and I'm like, I'm wearing my hot pink blazer, and it's like, I'm going to embrace it.
yeah. I was recently I was doing some talking and I was at a conference and a mutual friend of ours was there who I love this guy and I owe him some follow-up, but I just haven't had a chance to get to it yet. But he actually came into my session and we talked about stuff and one thing he said to me really resonated. And he's like, more Thomas. Because,
Ooh, I love that.
when I get into sessions, I'm not just going to talk about a PowerPoint there. So I actually challenged the room and I called it out. Like if a guy was like, and I go right to it. Right. So I don't have patience for this nicey, I will go right to the issue. Why not? And then at the end, John was like, yeah, man, more Thomas. He's
I
like,
love
that's
that.
that's what it is, right? So I think that when you talk about your pink and your color, that resonated with me. So yeah, maybe it's more
Yeah.
pink.
Well, and I think it's integrating. So, I'm a dancer, right? So I presented at this Scaling New Heights Accounting Tech Conference a couple weeks ago. I had a neuroscience section. So it's integrating some of my fun passions. But I had this idea because what people tell me when I do my experiences and I incorporate dance, they're like, more dance, more dance. And so I brought my speaker and I was like, oh, I don't know if this crowd is like going to be able to do it. Should I do it? But I was like, and my husband thought I was crazy, which always is like my sign I'm on the right track.
Uh,
And I asked, and so I at the beginning of the session I said, "Are you guys? This seems like a fun accounting crew, and they are. It's a really fun conference. Do you think you might be open to do a little dance break?" And everyone was like, "Yeah, we're in for it." So halfway through, and it was tied into my content. Like there was a message I was trying to make. And I'm like, instead of just me telling you about it, why don't we actually experience it? And so I turn on, my Megan Trainer, I feel better when I'm dancing. And like we had a dance party, which was genius, right? So it's and and that's memorable and that's me. And so I'm not trying to hide, let me put it in this box, which, 10 years ago, or even maybe a year ago, I probably wouldn't have had the courage to really integrate that. And now I'm like, you know what? This is fun and it actually supports the learning process. Let's go.
well, I think that feeds right into, you talk about that sea of gray and the pop of color. I mean, I think that's really your differentiator and how people are gonna remember that message that you're bringing them, which is, a beautiful message, right? Because
Yeah.
I think your experiences that you have are such a beautiful thing to talk about. So when you put this out, I'm like, okay. And I think when I read the first 20 pages or whatever, and I think we messaged or I talked to, I can't
Yeah,
remember,
you
but I was like,
topped. You stopped.
yeah, I was like, I don't know how
Yeah.
I gotta pause with this. I don't know if
Yeah.
I can do this, but like I said, that the last quarter of the book is pretty incredible. And there's one, so we talk almost like alpha and omega, who you are right at the beginning, and
Mhm.
then so I wanna read this one piece towards the end of the book. This is the dirty dancing chapter. And I haven't had a dirty martini in so long. I'm gonna have to revisit that maybe later this evening. But this again, I'm gonna get goosebumps or shut up.
Okay.
People are like, what you're again, heart on my sleeve. So it says, uh, now I felt like we really were on a first date. I'm sure you know exactly where I am. You did? Gabe looked surprised when you're doing a little research. And you said, yes, honestly, the age difference doesn't bother me. We have a great connection and seem to have similar beliefs and core values.
Look at how
Well,
perfect I
bam!
am for you, right? Like, if you're gonna do a book and have a repeat guest, like I'm a values queen, Thomas. Like, but it's so true, right? In that article, so this was this concept too of this like soul equal kind
Yep.
of where you think of a soulmate, right? Like I'm made for this person, and and we get so caught up. I think this is where the values come in. We get so caught up on the outside, right? Do we have the job? Do we have the family alignment? Do we have the age, the height, like whatever that is? And we didn't have all of that, right? Like there were some differences that we could have very easily been like, this doesn't check a box. But and we wanted to live our life in a very similar way. We valued adventure. We valued independence or interdependence, which I think has served us really well. Like almost, well, we've been together now 10 years. Almost my longest marriage. Like, right, next year it will be officially, so we're going to celebrate that. Um, but there's a lot of, how we want to show up in the world and care for others and, be a considerate, human being on this planet. That's what mattered. And I think that's what made that connection so profound.
Did you guys actually? I mean, I know you wrote about, you say the beliefs and core values, but did you guys actually have like a discussion about it, or was it more of like understanding? Or
I mean, he had to complete several quizzes. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. I mean, we moved quickly, but there was a thorough vetting process. So, we didn't have the like, hey, what are your values? What are my values? But we had, in those moments where he was driving me to dance class, I was very intentional every day thinking about what are the one or two questions I want to find out in those 15-minute increments.
yeah, yeah, I'm sorry. I remember reading that. He must have been like, okay, what questions am I getting today?
Well, and then it was funny because we did do like premarital counseling with our chaplain who married us, and we had like a whole I don't know, 300 questions or something we both had to independently fill out and discuss. So we did have some intentional work. Now there's still things that you discover, later as you're with someone,
Yeah,
but I
sure.
think we had a pretty, and at that point I also told him, hey, at some point I might want to move back to Colorado. And so if you're not, and he had been in DC, 30 plus years, I understand if that's not on your radar, if that's not, if you're not willing to do that, but if that's a deal breaker, then let's not continue this because I need to have that in my back pocket if that's important to me at some point.
Was that a learning from Santos?
Yeah, I think that was just a moment of, I missed my family when I moved to DC, and I realized that I had spent so much time focused on my career, even though I was navigating other things, that my parents were getting older and things were shifting, and I wanted to
Right.
have that option to move back. And so I did pull that card, 8 years later, and was like, remember that conversation? And it wasn't an easy conversation because he didn't really want to move, and my daughter didn't really want to move. But I had this feeling, this gut intuition that this was the moment to do it. And we didn't have it all figured out. This was 2 years ago, like now, 2 years ago, 2023. And we took a leap. And then we've had some things that have happened this year that have questioned that decision. But I think this month actually is the first time I realized this was actually really the right decision for us. Um, but it's been bumpy along that, way. But he has honored he said that I honored that because I committed to that I would be willing to do that when we got married.
Well, when we have those moments of strife, if we can go back to those core values, that's what I mean. I'm paraphrasing what I like to use this one a lot, but like Roy Disney, everybody knows Walt,
Yeah.
right? And we talked earlier about CFOs. Like Roy was the if there was no Roy, there was no Walt.
Yeah.
And there's a famous quote he has of it, and I always butcher it, but it's something. The effect of it is if you always go back to your values, you'll never make a wrong decision.
Yeah, and it's true, right? And I am very intentional. It's not in an Excel spreadsheet. Like I have my journals, and I like to write with a pen and paper. But like what is important to me in this season and this quarter and this year and in the big picture, right? If nothing else, what are those two or three things that I want to focus on? That has really helped guide my life. And especially in New York, I mean, I have my journal from that time and I've gone back to it even as recently as like a couple months ago because I like to look and see how did my goals, values shift, right? So part of it was like dance, and the fun with that connection. Now it's a little bit more family and slowing things down. So it does kind of shift in seasons.
Was New York the right place at the right time? Because from an artistic perspective, like you can literally walk down the street and fall into a studio whether it's acting, whether it's comedy, whether it's dance, whatever artistic expression there, there is no excuse. If you want to explore something, that's like a, it just opens your arms to say, let's go.
It was absolutely the right place at the right time. And I've thought about, like, I don't know that it would have that same magic at this stage of my life, with a family, but I was hungry for new adventure. I was ready to explore all my creative outlets, and I did, right? It was dance, it was singing, it was Italian classes, it was writing classes, like I did all the things. And the city doesn't sleep. Like there's just an energy, and I had a
Apparently you
job.
don't either.
Apparently I didn't then. um, it was so much fun. And so I had opportunities to do, like, to move to San Francisco, to move to Belgium. Like I was exploring different opportunities. And when I went to New York, it just felt like home. And I'm so glad that I trusted that, because look at all of the beauty that came from that experience. And it was this, I don't know if you've read Elizabeth Gilbert's Big Magic. So she wrote Eat, Pray, Love. But it's this concept of, like, there's this big magic. And so if we have this inspiration, if we don't act on it, the magic leaves and goes find someone else who will act on it. And so we don't always have those inspirational creative sprints all the time. And so when you get them, you have to kind of build on that momentum. And I think I was just ready to say yes in the moment and try all of these things. I'm a little bit less fearless now. Like I don't like to fly anymore. And so now I'm like, how many flights have I committed to this year? We're like, and now I want to, like, be upgraded because I want the comfort. I'm a little bit of a different traveler than I was at 30, where it was like 6 a.m. flights and, budget airlines, and, like, I didn't care, just whatever. Now I'm a little bit more
Yeah, I think those needs
discerning.
come with maturity.
Yeah, my husband has helped me with that, because I was very much like, here's all the adventure we're gonna do, and he's like, okay, and he followed along. But then I learned some tips with him, like, okay, there's a better way to travel as you get a little older, and now I've become that person that desires a little more comfort.
Wow.
That's
So
okay.
as I was reading, you can see that the book was something in you for a very long time.
It was.
And now that it's here and it's out in my hands, and by the way, thank you very much for the lovely inscription. I appreciate
Yay.
that. Thank you
You're
very much. I love it.
welcome.
Um, is it sort of like a sense of loss now that the book is done? And it's like, okay, I wanted to do the book for so long. Now it's here. Is there a sort of like a letdown, or are you,
Oh, So,
or
so yes, there is always a letdown. I will just say that for writers, or if you're publishing a book, just know the letdown is part of the process. So it comes usually a little bit after publication. So that could be a couple weeks, a couple months, because there's all these things you're working towards, right? It's like a wedding, right? You're planning all the things, and then it happens, and then it's like, wait a minute, now what? Um, and so absolutely I had that letdown, and then there's just a lot to process. I think what's kept me going, or what's evolved, is now people are reading my story. They're resonating with it. They're sending me notes. They're doing reviews. Um, and you get to see a little bit of those dots connecting. And that's like such a gift. So I don't feel let down by it anymore. And I'm slowing down some of my promotion because I'm shifting gears into other directions too, right? I feel like I there's a lot of momentum that was built. I'm so proud of myself that I, like, got this done and am willing to step into the space that's not comfortable and hopefully is inspirational. And I have other chapters that I'm ready to kind of write. So there's a part of me that's also like, okay, let's now live this next chapter. And that's been really exciting. But in my author cohort, I mean, the letdown phase is very normal. So I just like to tell people that too, to know what to expect.
what I really love about that comment is that you mentioned it's part of the process,
Yeah.
right? Which, I'm a big fan of process, and for you to say that is inspiring, because it just tells me, like, this is the normal way to see it. This is what every experience. We all know this is going to happen. We expect it, and maybe a lot of people don't understand that aspect of it, but
Well, and that was the
process is
benefit.
important.
Yeah, that was the benefit of the publication process I did. So I had a hybrid publisher, so I didn't self-publish. And so it felt very much like traditional publishing. But my publisher, She Writes Press, brings her authors, it's all women authors, in a cohort. And we kind of meet. We've been meeting weekly for a year and a half to support each other.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's so beautiful when the books come into the world. We're cheering each other on. We're reading each other's stories. There's a lot of memoirists. And then we also we're at different phases, right? So I was like the caboose of my cohort. I was the last one issued. And so that was a 4 month period that I got to see like the excitement, the launch, all the things, and then the letdown, as I'm like starting to do my climb. And then I have some friends who are in later cohorts that I could share, hey, just so you know, like here's how you take care of yourself the week you publish because it's a lot and you need to
Oh,
find some
yeah.
downtime and you can't be on social media all the time because it will burn you out. And so you have to, like find your rhythm. So that was a very beautiful gift, honestly, is to have this whole cohort of fellow authors on my side and still like deep friends now. That was really beautiful.
It almost sounds like that's where you should have been from a publishing perspective and your process.
I honestly, I only shopped this one publisher, and when they said yes, I signed the contract. I did not like because that was what I knew was the right book for this, the right process for this book. Would that look the same for my next book? I don't know. To be honest with you, I have different ideas, but this was absolutely the right process for this book and experience. And I'm just really grateful for that because I do value community.
I love that you said without any hesitation or anything else, my next book.
Yeah, I've shifted my idea for my next book because it might actually be more of the thought leadership coaching. Um, and maybe that's a university press. I'm like, maybe it's a university press that would publish that book. So, yes, there will be more, Thomas. Like I can't stop writing.
Oh, good. That means we can have more podcasts and more
We can have
chats.
more. I can just, we can just start our own, right? This will be like the series that
Yeah,
continues
yeah.
on.
But a little bit earlier in that discussion, you had mentioned that when people were responding to the book and you were getting comments, you had mentioned that there was dots that were being connected. Were there dots that you were surprised by, or were there things that like, oh my gosh, I can't, yeah, that's interesting that this person saw that.
I mean, so many people at the beginning scene are like, run away, run away, run away. And I was like,
Yeah.
I know I should have run away. I think some of the dots actually got connected in the editing process because my developmental editor was trying to make sure the reader could understand why I would make some of these decisions. And so I had to understand why I would make some of these decisions.
Oh, that's
That
interesting.
that was really hard. But it helped me realize, my support system looked different when I was a teenager. And so my role models or people I would turn to for advice maybe looked a little different than, it might have helped to have some more people questioning that, right? Or, the deep needed, I mean, I dealt with this in my corporate career too, the need to be liked, the need for someone to like me and to to go against the grain and say no to something I've already committed to. Like I've struggled with that even in my corporate role. I'm coming back from maternity leave. So I think those were things that just helped me realize, okay, there were some things here that I struggle with as a human and I still work on and also giving myself grace. Like I don't honestly regret any choices I've made in my life, even though they've been hard because they've brought me to where I am. And I honestly believe that. And there are hard things that are still, happening because of some of those decisions, but I don't have regret.
Uh, Thank you for sharing that. You don't have regret, but were there times where you're like, this is becoming so deep and so personal, I don't want to do this anymore?
With
Like,
the
because
book.
yeah, with the book, because anybody can walk into a bookstore, pick this up, and they're like deep into your life.
Yeah, I think when I started to get really close to the publication process, like it's going to print, it was like, oh wow, there's no turning back, and it
Yeah,
was sort of, so there's that uncertainty of how is it going to land. And even my editor was like, some people might not like you because of some of the decisions you made. And I'm like, fair. I'm not looking for approval here. I'm trying to just share the reality
right.
of my life and, see if it resonates. Um, so I think it helped once like I've gotten all positive feedback. Like I haven't seen anything that's bashed me publicly. And if you're out there, please just hide because I don't want it. But it's okay, that I'm putting myself out there in the public domain. But I've been so grateful that I've had just really powerful feedback that has even said, I don't understand how she could do that, but it's a really beautiful story. And so that has kind of quenched any, I feel like the hardest part has been behind me.
Well, I think as you alluded to earlier, that's the benefit of community, right?
Yes.
You know, it's and you know, I can imagine like if you're trying to self-publish this, something like this, it would be very,
That would have been a very different process. I'm very thankful I had, because some people did deal with some backlash on their personal stories, and we could also be like, okay, we're here to support you too, because that's what we're signing up for, right? We're out in the public domain, and it means it's striking a nerve with someone, even if that's a negative nerve, that's striking something. So it's a very vulnerable process, and I'm all about vulnerability. I support vulnerability with my clients, but whew, this year has been a lot of vulnerability for me. So,
yeah. Yeah. Has there been like have you seen like a community forming around you in the book since you started this?
yes. So, the beautiful thing about moving back to Colorado is I actually reconnected with a friend who I met in New York City randomly. And she moved to my hometown and she started a networking group for moms in business. And that group have become like my best friends, my champions, my supporters. Like they were all there at my book launch. Like they're the ones, advocating for me. So and it's in person, which has been so nice right after the pandemic to actually be able to connect live. That has been such a gift. So I also feel like I'm in the right place at the right time to launch this, even though it was hard on my family to make that shift. For me, this has been a really powerful like embrace of my local community to say we got you. And that's felt really beautiful.
So do you make that group dance?
Oh, they've danced. Yeah. I have. And they've come to my dance classes because my husband and I did start some dance classes in our community and those are the people that sign up for my dance classes. Yes, everybody dances, Thomas. I mean,
I was
you gotta
curious when
dance.
the last time you put on the dance shoes, but I'm assuming it was quite recently, given that.
Yeah, it was a couple weeks ago at that conference and then yeah, I had to buy new ones because they were old. So I was like I actually need new shoes because now I'm using these again.
Are
So
there like are there like semi-pro competitions in your area that
I
you
hate to compete. I hate to compete. Competition is not a value of mine.
what about would you be a judge in a competition?
No, no, none of that is fun. No, I like to perform. I'm a showcase girl. Yeah, I like to perform and then socially dance.
I'm a
Yes.
showcase girl. I
I'm a
love that.
showcase girl. No,
That
I
sounds like a
am.
t-shirt.
I know I need that. Yes, I'm a showcase girl. That I learned in New York City because I did compete. My husband and I competed together too, but we like to perform and just have fun. It's just more fun. It's an expression for me versus like winning a prize. That's too stressful.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. So, I've asked this before. I don't know if you remember, but and I'm curious if there's additional ones that may surface. Um, have there been heroes, or what are your heroes that you look to in your life, or people of inspiration? Because sometimes people are like, ah, I don't like heroes, I don't have heroes. But what are some of those people that have inspired you and sort of kept that fire going for you? Call them hero, call them not, but
Yeah, so I have some professional heroes. So Sarah Elliott, who I don't know if you've connected with her, but she's a coach and a CPA, and she was my first person that I met that walked away from a career as an audit partner into coaching. And so she was my inspiration 3 years before that happened. And, we're really good friends. And so I saw her story on like the Center for Audit Quality documentary, like Where Accountants Go. I reached out to her. I joined her community. She coached me through kind of navigating that transition. She is definitely a professional hero of mine because I think it's important for us to see people do different things and see things that we want to do. And it helps us know that it's possible. That's why representation and having diverse experiences matters. And when I saw that, it was that moment of, oh, I can do this. I wanted to do this, but I could see that that was possible. And
when
so
did you
that
see that? Was that in 23 or
that that was 2020.
2020?
2020, when did 2020, yeah, 2020. It was right the middle of the pandemic.
Oh, wow.
And then I went back to coaching college, at UT Dallas because that's also where she went like a month later and graduated, a year later. So it was like the beginning of this coaching realm. So she's definitely a hero of mine.
Very
And then I
cool.
have some besties here locally that I can call and be like, I need a pep talk, like I'm having imposter syndrome, like, oh my gosh, I'm really overwhelmed. I'm doing this big interview or this big, I'm pitching myself for this podcast or whatever it is, and they will just be supportive, be a friend, also, give you advice. So I feel like I have some really amazing people in my life that have really helped me because we can't do it alone. We can't do it
Yeah.
alone. And I think that I definitely have learned is that community is so important. And I have a virtual one and I have an amazing, and you're one of those people too, right? Like you're always supporting me on LinkedIn. Like you're always cheering me on, which is important because every time we put ourselves out there, it's hard. Even if you're used to doing it, it's vulnerable. So when people say, I see you, this matters, keep doing it, that's you just need a little bit of that push to know that you're not wasting your time and energy.
Well, yeah, I think there is something to the just the simple statement, "I see you."
Yes.
And thank you for that. I appreciate it. But yeah,
Yeah,
I tried to be supportive. So,
you are. I love that.
what would be one or two takeaways that you want somebody who's listening to this, and obviously listening to this after they
Read the
read and
book.
they put as many flags as I have on
Yeah.
yours.
And you leave your Amazon review.
Yeah,
Whatever
yeah, that's
stars it
right.
is, I don't care. I think I guess the takeaway I would have is first trust your gut. Like that find and cultivate practices. So when I talk about energy work and you asked me about that at the beginning, cultivate practices that help you quiet your mind so you can hear what you is really important to you. And so I think that is something that's really beneficial in whatever way you're showing up in the world, especially if you're in a corporate role or a leadership role. The world is very noisy, and it's hard sometimes for us to tune in to what is really important to us. And so, if you can cultivate a practice, I think dance for me was part of that practice because it gets you in your body. That has been life changing for me because then listen to your gut, right? When you start to quiet your mind and the noise softens and you hear things, pay attention to it. These moments don't show up as these loud, thunderous bolts. They're like
Yeah.
gentle whispers that keep coming and then have the courage to take the leap. And I have a Substack. You can find me at soulspark .substack.com, I think is what it is. Um, and I'm trying to share like this is what it actually feels like to take the leap when you don't have that net that is going to appear because I'm trying to bring some reality of what it feels like, but it's worth it. It's worth it because we really only have one life to live. So those would be some things I would encourage people to take away.
Do you have a daily meditation practice or a meditation practice that you follow?
I would love to. I am really bad with routine. And so I've gotten out of that. I started it again this morning because I can tell my brain and as a woman in her 40s too, my brain is shifting and I'm struggling with that in the mornings. And so I'm trying not to doom scroll, first thing. And so I have a gratitude journal that's very simple. It's sort of like what are my intentions for the day? What
That's
can
a
I focus on?
meditation.
It's a
That's a med.
meditation. So I just started that again today. And then my meditation is I do a 30-minute walk in nature. Like I try and do that first thing after I drop my daughter off. And I don't listen to podcasts. Like it's silent and that's my meditative clearing. And so I'm going to do that after this call because that's how my energy works through. And then I can come back and say, this is what is important to me.
Thich Nhat Hanh talks about walking meditation. So
Yeah,
I'll
that's what really works for me. It's powerful.
and there's a theory in I think it's in Japan where it's like I forget they call them like forest showers or something like that, where people
Oh.
will go into the forest because it's that nature just it's it's like a form of meditation also. It's that nature is really giving you a lot of input. But anyway,
Well, and wild things like a bullfrog showed up on my path like this week, like a giant, I'm not kidding, a giant bullfrog, like away from the water in the middle of this random path. And then I believe in this stuff. So then I Google like spirit animal bullfrog. What does that mean? Right. And it's like you're at the precipice of this transformation and you're stepping into a new path and
really,
embrace it. Yes, it was wild. And I've never seen a bullfrog in my area. So also if you slow down and you just pay attention, like what are some signs that could be just encouraging you on your path. So that to me was like, it literally stopped me in my middle of my track because he was just blocking the road and wasn't moving. So just tune in.
Yeah, I call that present. For me, it's presence,
Yes.
right? Everything will
Yes.
be everything sort of like I remember I had an acting teacher once, and sometimes you get a message, you don't really understand a message to get at the right time.
Yes.
And I got like all she said, and we had this big exercise. We're really deep, and it was super intense. And at one point, she just sort of like stopped, and she just looked at us, and she said, "Everything is in the silence."
It is so true. So I think cultivating moments of silence, however that looks for you, and then just noticing what comes up. That's how I've made these big shifts. It was 3 years of like, okay, okay, no, I see now this is really the moment. And then having that courage to try.
So, Jen, how would people best get in touch with you regarding the book and some of those things? Is it a website? Is it, you mentioned the Substack?
Yeah.
How
I
would
mean, my
people?
my website has all the things. So it's jenntodling.com with Jen with two N's. And then yeah, if you're interested in subscribing to my weekly Substack, that link is also there on my contact page. And that's a great way to just that's how I'm writing right now. That's where my musings are coming. I have shared some earlier chapters of that second book there.
Oh,
Yeah, so there's some nuggets there where I was like, at least I'll share it in my Substack. And so that's a good place to connect with me. And that's sort of my heart work right now of sharing my inspirations.
wow. Well, listen, I can't thank you enough for the time. This has been another wonderful conversation. Maybe the third one that we would have, you'd be the first for three. It's like a watch party. We watch the first
There you go.
podcast and the second one. I was like, oh my God.
Well, or I'll interview you for your book if you decide to pursue it.
Oh, now look who's planting the
I can
seed.
I can have you on our podcast with my coaching bestie, the Manage Yourself podcast, and we'll interview you on your book. So there you go.
I have a tough time spelling, never mind writing a sentence. So
I love
we'll
it. Well,
see.
thank you for being part of the conversation. I appreciate you making it to the end too, and all the thoughtful comments and support. It means a
Oh, my
lot.
pleasure. I know we will talk soon. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Thomas.